we're live. It is Sunday, September 27th, 2020, 5:02 p.m. We are late today by 2 minutes for a really interesting reason, which is a technical malfunction of the service Periscope, which is what helped.
Less interesting than you think it is, Ben.
I know, it is less interesting than I think it is. It is objectively less interesting than a lot of things, particularly the blue rooster that's emblazoned on our mystery guest's chest. I want to say that it is about to be Yom Kippur. So if I've offended any of you over the course of the past year, you probably deserved it.
If you haven't offended, if Ben hasn't offended you, he will over the next hour.
Then I'm working on it. So that's what the coming year is for. It's a new year. Gemar Chatima Tova to you all. And welcome to the show, Alan
I just understood
Rosenstein.
one of Scott Shapiro's tweets that I didn't understand until I remembered that he was like, I'm really sorry to all of you who I offended with my last tweet. I was like, what?
No, it is this thing in the Jewish community.
Never sorry for anything.
To, fight like cats and dogs all year and then do a sort of perfunctory, oh, by the way, if I've offended you at all in the past year, please forgive me, in this sort of flamboyant
it gets even better, because then you go to synagogue and the highlight of the Yom Kippur service is this incredibly emotional reading of Kol Nidre, which, as it turns out, is like an ancient contract, or it's an ancient legal vow that nullifies all contracts for the future year. I mean, I think that may be the most quintessentially Jewish feature of our religion.
Yeah, because you go to synagogue and you say, any promises that I make over the next year are null and void before I make them. So just don't trust me in the coming year.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I like this. I just want to say, Presbyterian wasp here. But wanted
with a Jewish name, though. So
with a Jewish
we
name,
know where
and
you were a couple generations ago.
Ashkenazi genes. No, it's true. But I will say, not raised with a cultural Jewish tradition, that the thing that I have learned the most in the last couple of years of having friends of many faiths is that I really appreciate the Jewish efficiency of one day, just one day, not every freaking Sunday. One day of atonement, one day of going and asking for forgiveness and kind of letting it all out. You don't think that that's efficient versus the Catholic faith?
I don't think it's quite right. I mean, it's one day of official atonement, and then the 364 days of the rest of the year, it's just your mother doing it. So the guilt and atonement is constant. It just depends on.
It depends who the officiant is.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think accusing Jews of liturgical efficiency is really
fair.
off base.
I've been to a bar or bat mitzvah.
I remember growing up, and I knew that my Catholic neighbor across the street used to tell me that Mass took an hour. And I went to an Orthodox
if
synagogue,
only. Yeah.
And Saturday services at an Orthodox synagogue was, a 3.5 hour project.
Without a snack break.
And there's no breaks. And there's no.
Was that a joke about communion?
In retrospect, actually, that does. Yeah, that in retrospect, that does actually. I can see.
Come on, and whatever you say about Yom Kippur, it is not efficient. It takes. So your point has some sort of it
was moral efficiency, Ben.
Yeah,
it was
one day. I just whatever Jews are.
Fair enough.
They're not efficient.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
anyway.
I can't imagine. I mean, I've seen all these signs for drive-in church services where I am in Minnesota, and I can't imagine a Jewish equivalent of that. Just because right? Like you can't, you know, you can't compress it into like 30 minutes. Oh, well, first of all, you can't drive.
Also,
I guess.
That's all you drive to. It's kind of like a contradiction. In terms.
Yeah, that is also true. Yeah, it is tricky.
Oh my God.
Okay, so Alan Rosenstein, mystery guest.
Wait, I have to
go ahead.
I wanted to. So, Alan, we had a funny story on our way here. I think that we should, because I tried to send Alan a few times a link to get into the thing, and I was texting it to him, but I had the wrong thing in my clipboard. So I sent him instead. What did I send you, Alan?
You sent me a link to a Craigslist post for a adjustable weight bench in Cape Cod or something. I didn't quite click there, which I can't help but feel is a comment on. I feel like, are you telling me to go to get into the gym?
No,
Like
I've been
I need to put on pack on the strength. I mean,
actually, that was the announced.
So much for body positivity.
In lieu of fun today was, you can go to In Lieu of Fun on YouTube or to Craigslist to buy a weight bench.
I will say I built a gym for myself in my basement in January, just because I don't know, I prefer that than having to go to the gym. And it is in retrospect the smartest decision of my entire life, because of course when March came and pandemic started and now you can't buy anything, it is such a joy to be able to go and lift weights in my own home whenever I want to. It is awesome.
I didn't get the weight bench. It was gone. And and also John was like, absolutely not. This is a piece of junk. And so I'm like, but it's free. I'm very compelled by by the costlessness argument of things. But anyways, this is exactly like Michael Fromberger says, like the tiki bar. I try so hard. Anyways, Ben, Alan Rosenstein, you were about to say something. You want to talk about?
But just maybe you should introduce the mystery guest for those who do not know him and his blue rooster.
Yes, Alan is a professor of law at the University of Minnesota, and he is a contributor to Lawfare very frequently. And so that is how both Ben and I know him. And we know each other. He is the
only student contributor. He was the very first student contributor to Lawfare, and he's the only. Story. And he's the only one student contributor to Lawfare who has ever called me an asshole within 45 minutes of meeting me.
Alan, get it tattooed on your
Again, I want to add an important piece of context to that story, which is that Ben deserved it, and 2, Ben was wearing those Vibram 5-figure toed shoes at the time. So I feel like just by definition, I was in the right in that interaction.
Well, can I point out that the matter that we were discussing, was I right or wrong about?
I don't remember, actually. I don't remember what it was. I do not remember what we were talking about.
Predicting from your accent how far out the LIRR you lived from New York City.
You were totally right.
And I was within 2 minutes of accurate.
Were you?
It was
really?
It was amazing. And I spent so much time trying not to sound like that too. So I was particularly
45
upset.
Minutes outside of New York, and he said 43. Yep. You asshole.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Oh man. Okay. So
now, to be fair, I was an asshole, but being right is at least a little bit mitigating. Kate.
Wait, we have to pause for a second, because this is the first that I'm hearing that you own. I'm not surprised, but I'm thrilled that you own Vibram 5-finger foot gloves, which I just love that I can say foot gloves. Like, I just love that that's a thing. Anyway,
I don't think they make them anymore.
I don't know what the deal is, but I was going to ask you about that, and then I was going to ask you, because one of our first or second conversations was when we were at a conference together, and I was talking about how I had just gotten a little obnoxious electric stand-on razor scooter that I could commute at 18 hours and 82 miles per hour, complete without a helmet, completely unsafely from like the LIRR to my office at St. John's. And you were like, oh, let me tell you about my Segway. And I was like, yeah. He's like, people hate it. They just like shout insults at me.
Yeah, people don't like the Segway.
As and so I'm just like, and so like, so I thought that the joke was going to be that Alan had like called you an asshole for your 5-fingered foot gloves, but now it turns out that it was, well, because you were actually being kind of an asshole. But
I was being an asshole.
Yeah, but I am now interested to hear, one, tell us the Segway story, or tell us about your riding of the Segway.
Actually, I'm going to have Alan tell the Segway story.
Oh, yeah. So
if we were talking about sous vides,
yeah,
I would have to eat crow in front of Alan. But since you raised the Segway story, I'm just going to shut up and let Alan tell the story.
Totally. So Ben purchased a Segway some number of years ago. When was this? Like 2012 or something? I can't remember if I was in law school.
It's a good while ago. I've been
at this time
on it for years.
Yeah, and for the first year that he had a Segway, I mocked him constantly. Every chance I got, I just endlessly mocked him for the Segway, because Segways are, especially if you have not ridden on them, they are objectively ridiculous looking devices.
But ours, you're the T kind, the kind that you stand on and you have like a bar that you hold, or yours like the lean forward kind that don't have the bar?
It's the old style.
The old style.
One
it's
cops ride on.
Yeah, it's the one that
objectively dorky and ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And so at some point I was in DC and Ben just got tired of me crapping all over his Segway. So, and this was of course because we had met for breakfast and he of course had come to breakfast on his Segway. And so I spent the whole breakfast making fun of him. And so he said, okay, shut up, come with me and try the Segway. And I got on the Segway, and I think, and this just shows that the Segway, despite its flaws, is a profoundly genius invention. Within 4 seconds, I think, I became a total Segway fanboy and never wanted to get off and squealed with delight. And then publicly had to on Facebook eat crow because
we don't eat crows here. We love them and feed them peanuts. But yes, okay.
I had to feed some crows some peanuts because I was so wrong. Yeah, Segways are amazing, and I desperately want one. I mean, yeah, they're amazing.
I got one of the, so this is how we bonded over this, Ben. And like people made fun of me too, because I had one of those little electric scooters and it was like, it looks more like a Razor, but it has like, and I spent a bunch of money on it. And listen, there was about a 3-mile distance that was all uphill. That was, no, it was like more than 3 miles. It was like maybe 5. That was between the Long Island Railroad and the law school. And there was no public transportation. Well, there's buses, but they took hours and were always late. And there I could get an Uber every time, which seemed terrible. Biking was like, I'd have to take it on the LIRR and then like get whatever. It was just, all of the options were terrible. And like, John finally was like, hey, like all of the delivery people in our neighborhood and people in like all of these other cities are using these like little electric scooters. Like, you should try it. And we looked around, we bought one, and it was absolutely incredible. It like changed my commute. It was also joyful. It was so like, that was the thing I was never counting on, that there was this like amazing amount of like instead of being in a car and being on my phone, like if I had taken an Uber, or being on the subway and losing service, or like I was just like gleefully riding this stupid scooter. I mean, trying not to die, but I felt like I was playing a video game for 30 minutes outdoors. And it was like, I was Frogger and I was like, kind of just like going through this whole video. Like it was, and there's all these people and I saw so much more life in the neighborhood, and I saw all these different communities, and I like rode through, and I just like loved it. It was amazing. I don't know. It really changed actually my entire relationship with my job and like St. John's, like at a difficult time when I was kind of like trying to kind of just get started there.
I didn't. So right.
I just like really loved it.
I bought the Segway. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I bought the Segway for coldly rational, like almost like weirdly rational reasons, which is I live 4 miles from my office. Um, the to drive it is a dice roll. It can take 15, 20 minutes or it can take an hour. And I hate sitting in traffic. To take the metro, the red line around that time was having these very frequent outages. And so it was very similar. It could be a breeze or it could be a disaster. And so I was looking for a mode of transportation. I like biking, but I do not like, DC is very hot a lot of the year. And so I didn't really relish arriving at work drenched in sweat. And all the various motor scooter type devices that I used to ride when I was younger are pretty dangerous in traffic. So I was looking at something safe, that would give me a predictably timed commute, and that would be reasonably pleasant, and that wasn't dependent on either traffic on during rush hour or on the metro during rush hour. So that's why I bought the Segway. And what I left out of that calculation was that it was an extremely pleasurable experience in exactly the way Kate describes it, with this one caveat, which is that a certain group of people, all male, all in a certain age demographic, lean out their windows to shout abuse at you. Why?
People are dicks.
Know. Yeah, well, I don't know why. But
people try to trip me on the sidewalk all the time.
Yeah, people are nasty about it. There's something about
like I can really get hurt.
Deviant behavior of any type that brings out the worst in people. On the other hand, little children, when you are riding a Segway, think you are a god. And I just want to say that is a trade I will make any day of the week, because I like little children a lot better than I like asshole males driving by in cars.
I think that's exactly right.
Okay, so here's my question, Alan Rosenstein. It is now the end of September. You are in Minnesota, which means you are going from the period where you get the best weather in the world to the period in which you get the worst weather in the world.
Oh no, what if you like winter sport?
Did you just say winter sports? I really like
it. Yes.
So
I love winter sports.
No, but there's something about it being like 2 degrees with a wind chill factor of -30 in October.
So okay, I will defend as a Minnesota transplant and a very proud Upper Midwesterner now,
which is absurd. By the way,
no, I don't think so. You by far the best. No, it's like this is great. It's like living in Canada. It's wonderful. I will say so. We don't have the worst weather, actually. I mean, I've actually thought about this. Winter in Minnesota is much better than people realize, because although it is very cold, it is very sunny, right? So I lived in Boston for many, many years, and it is warmer by like 10 degrees or something in Boston, but it's gray and slushy every day in the winter. And so I would much rather have my Minnesota weather in which it snows 7 times. Those 7 times are very heavy, and then it just doesn't really precipitate that much. Now, it does get really cold. That part's not awesome. But I will tell you, the hard part about Minnesota winter is not that like on some random day in February, it's -40. Like, that's just cold, but you deal with it. It's that in April, when all your friends are barbecuing, including in places like Massachusetts, you're still digging out the snow. That is really depressing. So that's the hard part.
So I never knew that like Minnesota had this like storied history of really hard wet winters, because I grew up in Rochester, New York.
Well, Rochester, that's a rough winter.
It is. I would say so. Here, to, and this is why I have no sympathy, and I actually think I would love to live in Minnesota, like despite the cold, is like the sun. Is like they actually get sun, and it's beautiful, and it's like like if you can feel the sun on you when you're outside, even if it doesn't warm you completely, it's just a different experience. Whereas like I will say that like I have growing up in Rochester, it's 60 days of sun a year. It is like literally less sun than Seattle. It is less sun than anywhere else in the continental United States.
But you also Rochester also is in that sort of lake effect
Yes.
snow belt region,
Yes.
right? Where
And
you
so-
get like 20 feet of snow a year.
I have stories, and like this is actually a weird thing. Like I never thought that I'd end up like being like with like life partnered with someone who was from the same region as me, but it's amazing that we both have these like the same memories of this snowstorm that happened in fifth for me and eighth for him grade. And it's like, yeah, remember when it like snowed 6 feet and we could jump out of the second story windows into like the snowbanks? And like, remember when we like all of the power went out and our moms had us build like snow refrigerators and snowbanks so that we could like put our milk into them and like all of these types of stories. And like I really do like those are being a kid in cold weather and lots of snow is great, I have to say. Like kids just don't care. Like they really like love to go out in it, and like being as an adult it's like a lot less fun. But yeah.
So I didn't realize you were from Rochester, Kate. So you must know the famous poem by Anthony Hecht, Sestina d'Inverno, which is maybe the most famous poem ever written. Oh, wow. So
how do I not know this?
I don't know, but this is amazing. So Anthony, I think it's, I don't know, it's Hecht. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, if it's Hecht or Hecht or something like that. But he was a poet who taught at the University of Rochester for many years. And he wrote my favorite example of a sestina, which is one of these really old, intricate poetic forms where like all the, the ends of all the lines repeat in this very complicated way. But can I just read you the first stanza of it? It's so good. It's so good.
That would be amazing.
Here in this bleak city of Rochester, where there are 27 words for snow, not all of them polite, the wayward mind basks in some Yucatan of its own making, some coppery, sleek lagoons or cinnamon island alive with lemon tints and burnished natives. And oh, that we were there. But here the natives of this gray, sunless city of Rochester have sown whole mines of salt about their land, bare ruined Carthage that it is, while snow comes down as if the flood were in the making. And it goes on and on for a couple more stanzas.
That's
but
amazing.
It is
there's
awesome.
There's
fantastic.
When was it
that
written?
is fantastic. Yeah,
this is
put a link for that in the
yeah.
In the chat?
It's 1980. This was written, I don't know, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, something like that. But it's my favorite. It's my favorite sestina of all time. It is so good.
Alan has he didn't know that islands don't float, but he has a favorite sestina about Rochester.
And I think won my heart forever, Alan.
It was a patchy education, but where it counted, I think it delivered.
The only person I think on the University of Minnesota law faculty who both has those distinctions. All right, let's talk about the election and the elevation to the Supreme Court of a Midwestern law faculty member, sort of in that sense, colleague of yours.
Yeah. Have you guys seen, apparently the New York Times just released Trump's tax returns?
Wait, what the fuck?
No.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Are you guys not watching the side conversation of our audience here?
No, I wasn't.
No.
Yeah. So everything
I had no eyes on it. What's going on?
This is like the third pre-October surprise. Just go to NewYorkTimes.com.
Oh yeah, that's
wow.
Apparently he paid $750 like the first year he was president, and $750 the next.
He's gonna say it makes him smart.
I see. That was my first reaction. Like I think all liberals everywhere are just haha, we got the bastard. But I'm just not sure any of that's true. Like I think if anything, the people who like him are going to be like, yeah, he's smart. He
literally said that when
but like
last time one of his tax returns was released and showed he paid very little taxes. He said that makes me smart.
Apple's CEO Tim Cook says basically the same thing. We pay every cent of taxes we have to, and because we have really good lawyers, that answer is 0 cents.
Yeah, but Tim Cook isn't head of the federal government, and so
the idea of Donald Trump is.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the idea of taxes as a game to be won is maybe not the best tactic. But who knows? I don't, we apparently like the term kleptocracy is started to become even more and more relevant. This is fascinating. Maybe he doesn't want to win in the fall because he thinks it'll make him lose more money.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I would be really interested. I mean, I'm also not a tax. I don't know the first thing about tax law.
This? What is going on? I really wonder what's going on.
Got it.
They just got it.
Do you think that they just got it? I don't believe that for a second.
So should we read the lead for?
Yeah,
Donald J. Trump paid $750 in federal income taxes the year he won the presidency. In his first year in the White House, he paid another $750. He had paid no income taxes at all in 10 of the previous 15 years, largely because he reported losing much more money than he made. As the president wages a re-election campaign that polls say he is in danger of losing, his finances are under stress, beset by losses and hundreds of millions of dollars in debt coming due that he has personally guaranteed. Also hanging over him is a decade-long audit battle with the Internal Revenue Service over the legitimacy of a $72.9 million tax refund that he claimed and received after declaring huge losses. An adverse ruling could cost him more than $100 million. So that is the lead. That'll be an interesting few days of news coverage.
Can I just say though, it is not.
Decide they don't care.
Yeah, I mean, so many things here, right?
Yeah,
but can I just say, as Mr. Grumpy Norms, people should not be leaking other people's tax returns. Like Donald Trump should also have released his tax returns, and we should have a law saying you have to release your tax returns. But I don't know. This is like another of these examples of information coming out that should come out that is also coming out in the worst way it can possibly come out. But that's why they call me Mr. Grumpy Norms. I really
no one calls you that, Alan.
I wanted to catch on.
No, I totally disagree with you. The norm is that the IRS does not. It's not a norm. It's a federal criminal law. Does not release tax returns.
Yeah, I see your point.
Your accountant may have a fiduciary obligation to you not to release your tax return. Your spouse has no such obligation because it is, amongst other things, her tax return. And your niece, if you totally royally screw her financially, may decide to release your fucking tax returns. And I don't think there's any norm against that because most people don't treat their family members so badly that they have a particular incentive to do that. So I think
that's true.
You're describing depends entirely on who's tax, who's doing the releasing.
So you're right. You're absolutely right. And I was assuming that this is coming either from the IRS or it's coming from the Manhattan DA. I mean, I hope it's not.
No, I mean, look, if it's coming from the IRS, it's a crime. If it's coming from the Manhattan DA, I don't know. I don't know.
I hope not.
State criminal law, but I'd be very surprised if it weren't a crime under New York. But the last time there was a disclosure of Donald Trump's tax returns, it was an anonymous envelope received at the New York Times, and Mary Trump has since announced that it was her that sent it. Well,
I did not know that.
There is
okay.
no
That's
norm
fine.
Against retaliating against your nasty fucking uncle by releasing his tax return. I'm sorry. I was like, that's not a norm.
Agreed.
By the way, my uncle, who has been a guest on In Lieu of Fun, and my other uncle, who has never been a guest on In Lieu of Fun, not going to release their tax returns because they're good people and they're nice to me. But,
Also, I would really hope you just simply don't have access to them.
I also don't have access to their tax returns. neither of which I suspect would be all that interesting. But the point is, I think that, like asserting a general rule against government officials abusing their position of power applies generally to people that you mistreat as a matter of norm. Meh, I don't buy it.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And you're right. I didn't realize that Mary Trump had released the first go round.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, if she wants, she can. I guess she can do that. Yeah, she can do that.
I mean, like, listen.
So, wait, there's a more important moral to this story. If you're going to screw your niece out of a very large sum of money, don't give her access to your tax returns.
Yeah. That's not a moral. That's just common sense. That's like a very basic set of incentives that like you kind of realize are going to happen. We should go to questions. Robin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Wow, what a big news day.
Well, we
Thanks
didn't even know about it
for letting us know.
Yeah, apparently we're like
I didn't know
idiots.
about it.
Well, so much for the multitasking with the chat. I feel better that you kind of left. But I think it was Ark or at least I saw it from first. So thanks for that information. So prior to all this stuff, I was just wondering if it'd be possible for you guys to ask Jason Leopold from BuzzFeed News to come on and talk about his FinCEN files story.
That's a great idea.
Wonderful idea, Robin.
So Jason Leopold and his partner in crime, Anthony Cormier, we've had them on the Lawfare podcast. I wouldn't say close, but I've had a lot of interactions with them over the last few years. I've been an admirer of a lot of the reporting they did at BuzzFeed News on the Trump stuff, and I was one of their relatively few defenders on their big when Mueller contradicted one of their stories, and a lot of people were braying for their blood. I like Jason, and I will shoot him a note and see if he wants to come on and talk about
idea.
FinCEN.
Yeah, great idea.
Thank you. Because what's strange is just the fact that it seems like such a big story that involves so many countries and so many banks with the money laundering, and nobody seems to be covering it. I mean, I know there's nothing going on in the news, but
it's a really hard story. Incredibly hard. Like, I think that like you have to be, I hope that they must have a whole team of tax reporters and other types of experts on this, because there's no way you could disentangle all of this stuff, in my opinion. Like, if you didn't. So thanks for flagging that. I think BuzzFeed would be a great place to start.
Thank
Great
you.
idea. And Kate, just remind me, we have an opening on Thursday, right? I just booked Friday, but we still have nobody booked for
actually,
Thursday?
Jack just texted me and was like, had to cancel from a family emergency for Wednesday. So
we have Wednesday or Thursday?
Wednesday.
And actually, I think we should do
Tuesday?
Wednesday on the... What's that?
Who's Tuesday?
I
don't think we have Tuesday either. So Tuesday,
okay.
Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah.
Okay.
Brian's coming on tomorrow, but besides that, we're open. So
cool.
Anyway, sorry.
Rachel, the floor is yours. I don't think we've ever actually seen your face.
It's nice to see you.
Hi. Like, you've been a constant...
That's true. You've seen half my face.
Like this?
Oh,
I was in the lab one time.
Yeah.
And I had a
the
face mask
the
on,
upper half of your face.
This is better, and you're like in like garden, so it's nice.
I'm in a much happier place.
What's
right
on
now,
your
for
mind?
sure. So, how often do you wear your Vibram 5 fingers now, Ben? Do you still wear them or no? Have you graduated onto something else?
I work out in them. They're really good shoes for doing martial arts workouts. because you don't slip in them. So it's like the benefits of being barefoot for like martial arts are basically better done barefoot. But if you want to do like a martial arts workout on something like concrete, but barefoot is uncomfortable. And so if you want to do it somewhere where you might slip, having shoes on is great. So having shoes that mimic barefootness is really great. I have stopped going to meetings in them.
Yeah, that was a fun few years. Let me tell you.
But like people like Alan Rosenstein and Susan Hennessy, who the first time I met, so I know Susan Hennessy through Alan, and because Alan was an audacious student contributor who, and I say this with affection, used to like just order me around a lot. Like he basically told me how to start a Lawfare podcast, and that's why we have the Lawfare podcast today. And he also once told me, I want you to meet with my friend Susan. She's worth it. So I had a cup of coffee with his friend Susan, who put me to work finding her a job, and she was worth it. And like now, Susan's sort of my professional partner in crime.
Yeah,
and,
Ben, where's our book deal? That's what I want to know. When does our book deal start?
I don't know. Like anytime you want.
This would be hilarious.
Apparently I wore 5-fingered shoes to that meeting too, and Susan trots that fact out to embarrass me every now and then, not realizing fully that I am actually not capable of embarrassment about things like Vibram 5-finger shoes, segways,
his shoes had 5 fingers.
Dog
is
shirts.
The name of your book.
Yeah, I mean, like these things, apparently other people find them embarrassing. I do not. So there you go. I use them mostly for workouts now, not like I don't wear them casually anymore.
Well, the good thing I feel like about, I assume for the 5-fingered shoes for martial arts is that when you kick someone in the face when you're wearing 5-fingered shoes, the odor is also part of like what, a part of the attack, right? So you get that double whammy.
Surprise! They expect the thing coming at them to have closed toed, right?
Yeah.
But then it's sort of closed, but it's sort of open, and you can see the individual toes as they come at their face. So it's a little bewildering. This is not the subject I thought we were going to be discussing today.
Wait, you called? Okay, whatever. Hi, David.
David, I love
You
your
have a
background.
Nice haircut, David.
Thank
But
you.
you're silent.
Very,
Oh, there you are.
am I here?
Yep.
You got me? Okay. Welcome back, Alan. Great to see you again. And it's nice for you to give Ben
Thank
a little
you.
bit of a hard time. That's good. It's fair. So question for you all is, in your opinion, does the American electorate have the attention, I think is the big part, or the appetite to have a process-based argument concerning the replacement of Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg? And frankly, how crass and how awful is it for the Republicans to refer to Supreme Court nominee Berman as ACB?
Interesting. Whoops! I just dismissed Alan by mistake instead of dismissing David Batts. I'm gonna bring back Alan.
I will comment on the ACB thing. Okay, so there's actually a whole thing that most people do not know about, that the RBG thing taps into, which is that every single federal circuit judge is known by their initials, and so. My judge in the Second Circuit was RCW, and John Newman was like JON, like John, and then so all of these types of things. And so when you would talk about who you clerked for, Sotomayor was always just SS, and so these types of little things, they're part of a culture, and so ACB is actually a little more organic than you would think. It's not dismissive, or it has nothing to do with RBG. I don't think. If I mean, I think the people who are like criticizing this are being a little and they know about the naming thing, or being a little disingenuous, because I think that like she's always just been known as ACB because been a federal circuit judge for so long. But that was all I was going to say. But Alan, go ahead. It's all you know.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, having spent the last half hour teasing Ben, I'm going to now say that everything you need to know about judicial nominations, Ben figured out like 15 years ago, right? And nothing has actually changed since this process began to spiral out of control back in the 90s and 2000s. And I know, Ben, you wrote a book about this. I mean, I don't think, I'm not sure I use the word crass, even if the even if the Republicans were trying to sort of use some of the legacy of Justice Ginsburg to support, Judge Barrett. This is just kind of what happens. We have a Supreme Court that is so powerful and that injects itself into so many issues that at the end of the day, the only thing people care about is what sort of rulings the judge will make. I think that's true for liberals as well. And, I'm reminded of how much glee there was among many liberals when Antonin Scalia died, someone who was a hero to many on the conservative right. So, I think that there are a lot of things to object to, certainly on process grounds. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think Judge Barrett is exactly the sort of person that you would expect, frankly, any Republican president to appoint to a vacancy on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, so that's certainly right. But I don't think it fully answers the question of whether the public would tolerate a purely process-driven argument. I do think we have some poll data on that, which is that, the public, by a fairly substantial margin, not an overwhelming margin, but a substantial margin, thinks the winner of the election should name the next justice. That is a process-based argument. I cautioned Democrats yesterday on Twitter, like, I don't think they should be attacking Amy Coney Barrett. I mean, Amy Coney Barrett is a very much admired law professor and, for the last 3 years, federal appellate court judge. Yes, she's very conservative, but, in this country, you're allowed to be very conservative. And I don't think there's anything to attack, right? I think the argument against her, I mean, you can disagree with her views and say, I wouldn't vote to confirm somebody who has her views. But the real argument against her, that other people who may not share your views shouldn't vote to confirm her, is a process-based argument. It's that if you took this position with respect to Merrick Garland, you should not take diametrically the opposite position under more extreme circumstances 4 years later, when the shoe is on the other foot. And, I don't see why you need to say a negative word about Amy Coney Barrett in order to do that. And I will point out, actually, to Mitch McConnell's, I say very few things to his credit, but to the Republican senators' credit, they never actually went after Merrick Garland. And I think that's Judge Garland is a friend of mine. I care about him. One of the saving graces of that situation was that they never really attacked him, right? They had this sort of, it's not personal, it's business attitude toward it. And I actually think that's, like, at one level, really asshole-ish. At another level, it's sort of humane. If it's not about Merrick Garland, don't make it about Merrick Garland. If it's not about Amy Coney Barrett, don't make it about Amy Coney Barrett. This is about whether Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell should should be allowed to fill that seat. If you feel, and I do, that that is inappropriate given the positions that they have taken, make it about that. And that's actually, I don't see any reason to go after Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah, I don't agree with. So I agree with that on the merits, right? I don't agree with that as a political strategy. I mean, it is true, right, that whether it's like 65% or 55% of Americans in some poll say that they think that the next president or the president who wins in November should fill this seat. But that doesn't tell us how much they care about this issue, right? That tells us their opinion, but doesn't tell us the intensity of that opinion. And I generally think that these kinds of process arguments are just not as effective as arguments about the substance. Now, I don't think you have to attack Judge Barrett to point out that her jurisprudence will lead to a bunch of results that your base or your coalition or the majority of the American people think is a really bad idea, right? Like, you can just say, look, the Supreme Court is a super legislature in our system, especially given how it has developed over the last 50 or 60 years. It is going to decide the future of a lot of issues. If you have strong opinions about this future, you should vote accordingly. And it's not that, let's say you care a lot about Roe v. Wade. The fact that Judge Barrett wants to repeal it, let's say she wants to overrule it. I mean, I don't know, right? But like, let's say that's the assumption here. That doesn't make her a bad person necessarily, but it makes her a justice that will lead to outcomes you think are bad. And I'm just not convinced that outside DC or outside virtual DC, right? Like internet DC, Twitter DC, people are that exercised, frankly, about these kinds of process issues.
All right.
Andres.
Andres.
Sorry. Go ahead, Andres.
Go ahead.
No. My point is actually going to be much broader about her. So let's just kind of hold off. Go ahead, Andres.
Hi. Can you hear me?
You have a lovely background. Yes.
Yeah, Room Raider would be proud.
Oh God, I hate Room Raider. I was wondering whether you think it would be ethical or from a journalistic point of view if the New York Times held back the tax return news story, because it is October, so it's or nearly October, so it does feel kind of interesting that they were able to release it right now, not a bit earlier. Just hypothetically.
What do you think,
Yeah,
Alan?
really good question. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a journalist, so I don't know what the norms here are. I mean, I would guess that, I'm thinking more about this as when should, so I'm not a journalist, right? But I was briefly a prosecutor. And so I'm sort of thinking about, when is the appropriate time?
So that's a really dark place to go from one to the other.
No, but I'm just thinking, right? in both cases, you're trying to find the truth and you're trying to hold people accountable for their actions. And my view is you go when, you go at the earliest opportunity when the case is ready. And you believe that you will have an appropriate opportunity to air the issues, right? So, that's kind of my view, right? The story's ready when it is, when it's ready, and definitely, obviously, on the margins, you can make a judgment call about whether you should do it today or tomorrow or the next week, right? But if they had this story since July and they were just waiting till now to release it, I think that'd be a big problem. I suspect that is not the case, but I'll be very curious when the Politico process story about how the New York Times wrote the story comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I would be stunned if no self-respecting news organization would hold a story pending the election. You run a story when it's ready.
Yeah.
Now, the New York Times and their work on the Trump taxes in the past is a reflection of this, takes an extraordinary amount of care to get things right. And that can take months and months and months. Their last tax
Flip your
story...
vid so we can see you, Ben.
Sorry. Their last tax story, I mean, they worked on it for a very long time, processing the New York State returns and stuff. And, you know, but when it's ready to go, it's ready to go. And if that's a month before the election, that's a month before the election. And if that's a day before the election, that's a day before the election. And if you hold it pending an election, that's a corrupt decision. And you know, I don't think I don't think the New York Times would do that. I don't think the Washington Post would do that. And I also think that if they did that, the journalists would cry foul, and you would have that Politico story that Alan describes almost right away.
Can we just have a moment for the fact that, like, I actually think it's a great sign for the democracy that we don't have something like the New York Times dropping this 1 week or 2 weeks before the election. And I think that that's kind of this, I don't know, like, to some extent, Alan, I think you're right. Like, okay, like, something can be done, like, the story's done, the story's ready. I think in a story this big, you could always be waiting. Like, you could always be waiting and wanting more verification and something else. And, like, if you, like, I just don't, I think they dropped the story when they were ready. They would have dropped it 2 years ago if they could have, and they didn't, you know. And, like, I really think that that's, like, I think that but I do think that, like, that this is, I personally think that, like, if they had dropped this in 2 weeks from now, I would have been more skeptical. And I actually think this is, like, a good sign. Does that make any sense to anyone else? Like, I just kind of think that, like, I just don't want, like, I'm really sick of these, like, sucker punches from the left and from the right and from, like, media and from politics. I just kind of would love a straight game in which, like, I can trust the things I'm seeing with my own eyes and not constantly second guessing all of the motivations behind them. And so this feels slightly more, I don't know, genuine because it comes out in the end of September. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm being naive.
We should have a rule that all October surprises have to come out in September. I feel like that'd be so much better. And then we could all just have, like, a couple of weeks to just reflect and meditate on them and then make a decision.
I think that's exactly right. I think the early October surprise is sort of the right, because when it's the second half of October, it's really upsetting.
Yeah.
Is there? Can we have a moment for the fact that, like, I just don't understand what it is we were ever going to learn from his tax returns.
Well, I guess we got to read the story.
I know. Okay, well, yes, that, but, like, also, like, even if there was, like, not to be a jerk, but, like, if the takeaway from the story had a very strong normative ending, it would be the headline, and it's not the headline. The headline is, we have the tax returns. So it's a descriptive headline.
Trump pays almost no taxes, right? Because he's either losing a lot of money or because he's fraudulently claiming losses. Now, I haven't read the story, so I don't know which the implication is. But, you know, in the last story they did a real under the New York State tax return story, which must have been 30,000 words. It was a huge story. And, you know, the implication of it was the Trump organization and Fred Trump and Donald Trump have been engaged in a decades-long pattern of tax fraud. I mean, the New York Times reported that as a news matter. And that's that's a pretty striking thing to be able to put in the paper, and nobody cared. You know, which I don't know what to make of that.
That's because everyone with lots of money does that in New York or anywhere. Like, really, like, everyone, it is a game to be run. Like, to have the smart people who tell you how to pay $750 in taxes. There is a lot of tax fraud. And I think that that's maybe a bigger story that we're not seeing here, but will be, like, really wonderfully, hopefully, fleshed out after this. There's a lot of motivation to kind of go into this world now. Anyway, sorry, that's my take. What do you disagree, Alan?
Not really. Yeah, this to me strikes me as this to me strikes me as I would not be surprised if we end up looking at this story similar to how we ended up looking at the Russia story, in that what it shows is the clown car nature of the whole operation, right? I would assume that there's got to be some, I would just guess, right? If I had to guess, I'm sure there's some tax fraud going on. Probably no worse than the standard amount of tax fraud that goes on in New York. I mean, we know that the IRS is chronically underfunded. And so, that would not be surprising. But I would guess, right, that just as much of the Russia story ended up being incompetence, which is its own set of problems, right? I suspect that much of this tax fraud story or this tax story will be that Trump is a bad businessman. Like, he's just not good at his job. And every once in a while he gets a big windfall from The Apprentice or something. And then he blows it on golf courses, which again is the sort of thing that I feel like a voter should think about, right? To the extent that you're electing a person with some virtues, right, that you're hopefully thinking about. But this is so baked in at this point that unless the headline story is, tax documents show that Trump is actually bankrolling Venezuelan drug lords, I don't see a ton here, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see.
I still think the biggest scandal was the fact that he didn't release them. Full stop. I just think that was bullshit. I think
and no one cared.
That is a crazy story, and no one gave a shit. And I think
no one
that's
cared.
Stupid. Yeah, it was dumb. So.
All right, we're going to have to wrap up. There was a very important poll question up for everybody, which is whether Alan Rosenstein should be on the Supreme Court. Right now, there is a strong vote.
With a fucking rooster shirt.
Wait, why does no one think that the hair is part of the charm? Isn't there a certain he's such a deep thinker that he just doesn't even know how to brush his hair? I feel like that should be a plausible take on this.
What's wrong with his hair that's not wrong with my hair?
Remember the cowlick? Remember the cowlick from my first appearance?
Yes,
that was cowlick day.
That was cowlick day.
Everyone remembers the cowlick. It's still here. It's longer. But
you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a screenshot of Kate on every episode of In Lieu of Fun and make a flip book of her hair growing.
Oh, great. That sounds awesome. Please do that. This is the reason I stopped making the In Lieu of Fun videos is because I cannot handle watching myself talk or watching my videos. And so I stopped doing them because I was it got too hard. But anyways.
So we're going to wrap up so that Jews can get to Kol Nidre or video Kol Nidre or whatever the heck it is.
Drive through Kol Nidre.
Drive through
It's not sunset here. It's not sunset here.
No, but Kol
and
Nidre
I'm farther east than you.
They got to eat a little bit, and
you got a carbo load. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game.
Whole 24 hours without food.
You're very hungry.
Yeah, it's more like 27, 28.
Yeah.
Okay. Kate, who's our guest tomorrow?
Oh, our guest tomorrow is Brian Christian. He is a friend of mine from Brown, and also an author on AI and a lot of other and algorithms and a lot of other stuff. And he has a new book out, and he is going to come and talk to us about it.
All right. That will be 22 hours and 59 minutes from now. Alan,
wait, no, that's not true. Ben.
Oh, you're right. It will be 5 hours and 59 minutes from now, because In Lieu of Fun will be late tomorrow in Americans' religious freedom expression of respect for Judaism. We're going to wait till after the shofar blows. We will be live at 8 p.m. tomorrow. Everyone who shows up at 5 p.m. will be brokenhearted and
hungry.
We will see you at 8 tomorrow.
Wait, you won't be hungry. You'll have eaten, right?
Not by 5.
But not by 5.
Wait, no, you're not coming at 5. You're coming at 8.
No, but if you come at 5, those who come at 5,
you'll be hungry.
Oh,
because
sorry.
you'll be
don't come at 5. You'll be hungry.
You'll be
many
hungry
reasons.
and early. 3 hours early. Come at 8 p.m. tomorrow. That's 25 hours and 58 minutes from now. And until then, Alan, what do we say?
something about how you can't have fun.
You don't have fun anymore. We don't have fun.
We don't have fun anymore, and we're we're hungry. But but in lieu of fun.
So in lieu of fun,
you can hang out with us.
Yeah,
we have us.
Sure.
I need to work on this.
See, it's hard, Ben.
And Blue Roosters. Bye.
Blue Roosters.
Bye, everyone.
So
Thanks for having me.
Have Blue Roosters.